Alright, so we got Hannah Cifers versus Angela Hill. Hannah Cifers, burst onto the scene, getting smacked up by Macy Barber in her debut. I think it was on short notice. But ever since then, she's kind of bounced back against Polyana Viana, who didn't really use her BJJ or takedowns as much as I thought she would in that matchup. Decided to strike it out with Cifers and ended up losing a split decision, which I thought Polyana won, but 2 out of 3 judges didn't, so that's what matters. And then she versed Jodie Esquibel, who doesn't have a win in the UFC, so that's a bit of a layout fight, and that's a mutual opponent she has with Angela Hill, who's been on and off, pretty inconsistent over the last few years. She's ended up she's come back to the UFC after getting cut, won the Invicta title, came back. Now she's been in the UFC for about 2 years now, and she's very active fighter. I think this is her 5th fight in 10 months. So she's been very active, fought much tougher competition than Hannah Cifers, but also usually coming up short. She usually does win the fight she's supposed to win, like against Jodie Esquibel, Marina Moroz. Who was her last opponent? Who the fuck was it? Angie Overkill Hill. Oh, I hate this shit. Yeah, Canalossi. So yeah, she did well against that roid monster. But she was expected to win that fight as well. So yeah, this should be an interesting one. Small notes, Hannah, this is her hometown fight. She's from, she fights out of North Carolina. She's from North Carolina. Had a lot of her fights on the regional scene in North Carolina, especially in Raleigh, which is where this fight's being held. So she might have a small, following in Raleigh, but I don't know how big I don't know how much of a following she has over there. But she was like headlining a few shows up in Raleigh in her regional days. Something else to note, she is a small 115er. And Hill does have a 2-inch height advantage and a 2.5-inch reach advantage. And also this matchup for Angela Hill, she's faced it a lot in her career. She's faced a lot of short pressuring fighters, Canalossi, Andrade, Esquibel, and others. And she comes from a good camp in Alliance MMA. Good minds there, like Dominic Cruz, Eric Del Fiero. But I don't know if she just hangs out with Jessica Penne, because Penne always seems to be in her corner. And if she's just hanging out with Penne and, not really utilizing all the great minds there, then that's her own fault. And she's missing out greatly. But yeah, as I said before, she's been pretty on and off in the UFC. She's gone 5-7 in total. Winning the fight she's supposed to win, and coming up short in the fights where she's just obviously overmatched. Around 20th in the world is probably where I'd rate her. Any higher than that, she probably loses. She just doesn't seem to have what it takes to get into the top 15, top 10. But that's alright. Because this is a fight. Yeah, this is a fight I definitely believe that's on her level, and definitely a winnable fight for Angela Hill. Especially if she could start, chaining kicks together. When she's chaining the kicks and the punches together, she's in a groove, and she's definitely fighting the best of her abilities. But when you just see her, throwing one, straight rights and then just dipping out, kind of waiting for her opponent to attack, and they go 1-for-1, like kind of sparring. That's where she gets stuck and then loses those split decisions, because she's usually on the back foot, which judges don't like, especially in close fights. They usually give it to the person who's coming forward. and this has the potential to be a close fight, and I definitely believe Hannah will be the one coming forward, and Hill will be on the back foot. But we've seen in her recent fights, she does have really nice elbows, really nice knees, obviously coming from that Muay Thai background. Her clinch knees is definitely where she can win this fight. They're really, fucking hell, they're really nice. And she's got blades for elbows. Like she cut Escobar up, she cut Carnelosi up. The Carnelosi one ended up in a stoppage, and Hannah has been cut up before, even especially in the UFC against Macy Barber. Mostly her offense is just throwing the same things over and over again. Like if her opponents taped her, like they'd quickly find out how to game plan around her, because she throws about the same 4 strikes depending on the circumstances. What I mean by that is so when her opponent's coming forward, she'll either angle off and throw a straight right. She'll angle off to her right, shift her whole momentum to the right, and then throw a straight right, trying to get, a clean shot at the jaw. Or she won't even angle off, just straight right down the pipe. Or when opponent's closing distance, especially a shorter fighter, she'll lead with a straight knee. That's pretty devastating. She'll either go to the body or the head with that. I can definitely see that being thrown in this fight with Hannah's aggressive style. So yeah, pretty much she's got good footwork, decent striking, decent on the ground, sneaky submissions off bottom, usually isn't in top control, usually does get taken down, and that's where you see Angela Hill if it's on the mat in her fights. But yeah, on the other hand, Cifers, mostly a boxer, or mostly a, mostly a striker, doesn't usually take it to the ground, unless it's completely opportunistic, catches a kick, takes her opponent down. But mostly she's just looking to land that overhand right as her opponents are closing the distance. Or from a distance, whipping up a body kick with either leg. She likes to work the body, especially with kicks. Her lead leg offense, she has, I'd probably say that's one of her main weapons in her arsenal, lead leg offense. Sometimes she can throw, a weak lead leg kick, and I can definitely see that being countered by Angela Hill with a straight punch. She's got a good chin. Saw that in the Macy Barber fight. Took a lot of hits, took a lot of damage. Ended up just being cut up and dominated on the ground. She is a bit of a fish out of water on the ground. I reckon. Even on top, as we saw in the Polyana Viana fight, didn't really know what to do. Just kind of shelled up. Waited for it to be over. But, so maybe Angela Hill can attack that by taking her down. I definitely believe she has the BJJ advantage. And that's saying a lot if I think Angela Hill has a BJJ advantage against you. Also, her movement, very predictable. As I said before, her aggressive style, but doesn't really, switch it up a lot. Just kind of comes forward in a straight line. Doesn't cut off the cage. Just follows you around the cage, looking to land that right hand as the opponent, closes distance. Doesn't have good takedown defense. Doesn't even bother to get underhooks in, really. She also has a few tendencies that aren't advisable. The way she defends head kicks, she lifts her forearm up and tries to, meet it halfway. So lifting her arm up, meeting the shin with the forearm. That can easily, especially with her little arms, Well, I guess, she's pretty lean, she's pretty muscular, but her, the size, the circumference of her arms compared to a shin, they could easily lead to a broken bone in the arm. So far as Angela Hill, I'd be throwing heavy high kicks to attack that, yeah. Yeah, striking's pretty limited, pretty predictable. You could also say that about Angela, though. Kind of both come with the same 4 strikes in their fights. But definitely where I feel Angela has the advantage in this one is in the clinch. We've seen Cifers get out-muscled in the clinch in a few of her fights in the UFC already. She's as we said before, she's a small 155, 115er. So I think, and we saw Angela dominate in the clinch in her last fight against a pretty strong, well, to the naked eye, strong Kanalossi. So if Angela can get that plum clinch, or tie her up, get a body lock, and then land some clinch knees, I think she could definitely utilize that. Also, something to note about Cifers, she's very flat-footed. Yeah, very flat-footed. Kind of plods around, and when you're flat-footed and your movement is very predictable, and you're going against a Muay Thai person who's been doing Muay Thai for a few years and is a seasoned striker and who's versed some of the best pressure strikers in the UFC, that could lead to trouble. So past the victory for Hannah Cifers, she definitely needs to be the one coming forward. I would say put a lot of pressure on Angela Hill, but I would say bum rush her like you saw Andrade do. And we saw Marcos do as well. Marcos kind of bum rushed her. Angela didn't really have anything to say. Just kind of, got pressured back to the fence. Yeah. So we've seen that work against Angela Hill. Get into boxing range, definitely, and make it ugly, make it a dogfight. For Angela Hill, past the victory. Counter the lead leg kicks with punches. Talked about that. No overhands. Keep everything down the pipe. Because you'll beat her overhand rights if you just keep it straight down the line. Because it's just much quicker. The recoil is much quicker as well. Yeah, leg kicks. Talked about that. Just, because she's walking onto them pretty much. She's walking onto the leg kicks. She's walking forward, not really changing her angle at all. You know where she's going to step next, so just kick her legs. Get in the clinch, elbows and knees. If you want to fight at range, get in range, combo, and get out of range. Because Cifers, will keep the pressure on, but she will try to land that overhand right once you're in range. But don't get in boxing range, because that's where you don't have the advantage. So yeah. So how I see it going down, I see Cifers coming forward, but having little success with the hands. I see Hill just being too elusive, too quick. I think she has the faster hand speed. And I believe she should outpoint Cifers over 3 rounds in this one. I think Hill's improved a lot in the last 3 fights. She nearly beat Zhao Nan, who's a decent prospect. And yeah, I think she should take this one. I think they're on different levels of striking. And Angela Hill isn't even that good of a striker, but Cifers just isn't. She just isn't as diversified and isn't as complex as a lot of the fighters that Angela Hill has versed and beat. So I'm going to have to go with Angela Hill on this one. And there's no odds out at the moment, but I'm guessing Hill will be around 160. And I'd say if you can get anything better than 160, 165, I'd take that. I wouldn't bet big because it is Angela Hill and she is very inconsistent. And she does fight to the level of her opponent, which leads to split decisions. But if the decision line is 50 cents more, then just do that because this one's definitely got a decision. Cifers tough enough to brave it out. But yeah, Hill 160, anything below